Hey, how's it going? So I hope you're going to stick around because we're going to go to Hollywood today. We're going to go on this little joyride. If you like this kind of content, action movies and action heroes, past and present, please like and subscribe. Now buckle up, guys. This is going to be some ride. So Hollywood have had a lot of action heroes over the years, that's no surprise. And the most famous ones are probably Arnold and Stallone, but today I want to talk about what I consider the grandfathers of action movies, okay? In the 80s we had Arnold and Stallone, but in the 70s we had Clint Eastwood and Charles Bronson. And Charles Bronson I want to focus on today because he was just awesome in so many ways, and I don't know if he ever got the credit that he really deserved. So this one definitely goes out to good old Charlie. So Charles Bronson was born in Pennsylvania in 1921. His parents were immigrants from Lithuania, and he had a very rough childhood. I mean, he started smoking when he was just 9 years old. And when he was 10, he dropped out of school so he could help his dad working in the coal mines. So quite a tough childhood for sure. Charles Bronson actually served in the military. He flew over 25 combat missions, including missions over Japan. And he got injured and spent many months in the hospital. But he actually ended up receiving a Purple Heart, so that's quite an honor. So you could definitely say that he was one of the very few but real action heroes. It doesn't get to be more real than that. So after the war, he decided to head out west and try his luck in Hollywood. So as a young actor in Hollywood, unemployed, he needed a job. Anything. So he got a job as a waiter in a restaurant, and he worked really hard, but unfortunately after just 1 week the owner took him aside and said, "I'm sorry, Charlie, but I have to let you go." And Charles Bronson was like, "Well, what'd I do? I mean, I worked hard. I worked 12 hours a day, you know, for 6 days straight. I mean, what'd I do?" And he said, "No, that's not the problem, but the problem is you're scaring the customers." Now, personally, I always wondered how Charles Bronson reacted when he was told that he was fired. I'm guessing something like this. In 1951, he was cast in the movie You're in the Navy Now, and that was his first real screen credit. He also got a part in the movie House of Wax with Vincent Price from 1953. He played a guy named Igor. So in the early mid-50s, Charles Bronson ran into some serious problems. It was during the whole McCarthy era, where Senator Joseph McCarthy literally just went after everybody in Hollywood that had a Russian last name because he thought that, hey, they had to be communists, so they had to be put under a microscope. So Charles Bronson realized, you know what, with a Russian last name, I'm not going to get any work in Hollywood. So he realized, I need a new name. So one day he was driving around, actually this neighborhood right here, with his friend Steve McQueen, another future Hollywood big shot. And he said, man, I got to come up with a new name. This is just not working. And Steve McQueen, he said, well, how about that name over there? And Charles Bronson was like, what? Oh, Bronson. Bronson is the name, and was the name, of a famous Hollywood street. And he said, Charles Bronson, yeah, that sounds so much better. Also as a movie star. And that's how he became Charles Bronson. In fact, we're going to go out right now and take a look and see if we can find that sign. Okay guys, so here we are, just walking down Hollywood Boulevard, and we are about to approach the famous intersection of Hollywood Boulevard and Bronson. Hey guys, so here it is. that was fun. So I managed to find Charles Bronson's star on the Walk of Fame. So Charles Bronson actually got his star on Walk of Fame on December 10th, 1980. And that was exactly 2 days after John Lennon got shot and killed. So that was quite interesting. Off we go now. Yeah. So in the 1960s, finally things started to work out for good old Charlie, okay? He was still just, he got a lot of supporting roles, but did pretty all right. He was in great movies like The Magnificent Seven, The Great Escape, The Dirty Dozen, and Once Upon a Time in the West. Today, now we look back at them as, you know, classics. But back then he was still just a supporting role kind of guy, and he wanted more. He knew he could be the man. So what he ended up doing was what Clint Eastwood and a lot of other guys at the time did, which was he actually went to Europe. So Sergio Leone, he had worked on A Fistful of Dollars, For a Few Dollars More, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly with Clint Eastwood. And he actually had offered Charles Bronson to work the main role in A Fistful of Dollars instead of Clint Eastwood. Imagine what would have happened if, you know, he had accepted. But he just thought, nah, it's so ridiculous, stupid movie, etc. So Clint Eastwood got the part. Then he wanted Charles Bronson to play opposite Clint Eastwood the following year for A Few Dollars More in 1965. And again, he declined. Then he wanted him to also be in The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which is one of the greatest movies, really, at least westerns of all times. And again, he declined. And, you know, yeah. And then in 1968, Sergio Leone said, hey, let's do this movie. And Charles Bronson, he actually liked that one. I think it was the only movie he did, though, with Sergio Leone, at least of those spaghetti westerns. So that was quite interesting. And he did a few more movies in Europe. And then he moved back to the US. And now he was ready to take over the world, or at least Hollywood. And his really big hit, though, came in 1974 with Death Wish, directed by Michael Winner. I mean, that movie was just badass. It was very, very successful, and it competed against Godfather Part 2. And after the success of that movie, now Charles Bronson had arrived. He was now a bona fide movie star, you know, and he could write his own ticket, and he did. And throughout the 70s, he continued working on a lot of different action movies, and it's a long list. And interestingly enough, in 1968, he married the actress Jill Ireland. And she appeared in 15 movies over the next 20 years with her husband, Charles Bronson. And she once said, while she had to be in all those movies, play the female lead or love interest, because no other women could stand working with her husband, Charles Bronson. I don't know if that's quite true, though. Maybe she was just joking, but certainly very interesting, and it makes a good story. So it's no secret that Charles Bronson and his wife Jill Ireland's love story is the stuff of legends. And he was very, very protective of his family, his wife, children, all that stuff. Can't blame the man. But let's not forget that he killed almost 500 people in the movies. Charlie, what were you thinking? Oh, what the hell. Most of those men deserved it anyway. Most of them. So in the 80s, Charles Bronson continued to do what he did best, which was a lot of action films. They were not quite as successful as they had been in the 70s, but they were still pretty alright. He worked with the Cannon Group that did a lot of low budget but kick butt action films. And let's see, we don't want to get into an accident now. And they were actually pretty decent, pretty alright. The problem now was that it was a different time, and the kind of movies that he did not really fit into the time anymore, because now we had big beefcakes like Stallone and Arnold, you know, Rocky or Rambo and Terminator or Commando, all that stuff. And it was just a different time. It was a new era of action. And Charles Bronson was getting older. He was in his 60s now, whereas these other guys were, what, in the 30s and 40s. So it was just, it was not quite the same anymore. Unfortunately, Charles Bronson's wife, Jill Ireland, was diagnosed with cancer in 1984. It seemed like she beat it and she continued working, but then it came back in 1989 and she died in 1990 at the age of just 54 years old. Charles Bronson eventually continued working, but in 1998, I believe it was, 98 or 99, he was diagnosed with Alzheimer's and passed away in 2003 at the age of 81. Anyway, thank you so much, guys, for joining me, driving around town through Hollywood and going down the history of Charles Bronson, his life, his ups, his lows, and of course all his movies. And so there's really only one thing left to say.
Happy birthday.
Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. So if you like this kind of content, you know, action movies, just action, movie history, Hollywood, you name it, please like and subscribe. If there's anything you want me to focus on, please let me know. I live right here in Hollywood, so, you know, I can be your Hollywood tour guide, kind of like I was today. So I'll see you next time. Thank you.